all the best sports clips from around the country. Now you're probably wondering, why should I watch over here instead of over there? Because over there, they don't care about what you have to say. They say this all the time. They talk down to us. They think we're just a bunch of clowns on YouTube, Twitter. But I think it's the opposite. I think we know exactly what we're talking about. So I read every single comment. So if you think what I'm saying is the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard, let me know in the comments below. If you think what I'm saying is the most amazing thing, then definitely please let me know. Either way, let's get into some discussions. Let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and it's turning into something truly, truly special. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something we're really excited to be part of, and I think we're well on our way to doing it. So without further ado, let's get to it. We're watching a clip of First Things First, and talking about none other than the man of the year, Brock Purdy. And this is interesting because they're comparing him to Montana, and there's been a lot of back and forth in my comment section on here where people are saying, everyone's saying that Brock Purdy is good, but no one is comparing him to these greats of, Brady, Montana, Mahomes and stuff like that. And I've been saying, yes, they are, because people are either directly saying this to me in the comment section that not everyone is obviously reading as I am, or not. And so I'm like, and so here we go, we having them talk about this right now, and I'm like, see, people are having these conversations, and I think that's why ultimately people are pushing back on Brock Purdy. You saw this with LeBron, even LeBron James. I think so many people hated LeBron James from the jump, because from before he even entered the league, but definitely I will never forget that first game that he played, they were already saying this guy is going to be better than Michael Jordan. So you have a lot of fans who are like, whoa, what are you talking about? We don't even know who this kid is yet. And you're already saying that he's going to be better than Michael Jordan. Like, slow your roll here. And I think that was something that people took issue. And now, once that seed is planted, it was like, oh, stop it. And now you're looking for resistance every step of the way. You're looking to criticize him every step of the way. And I think that's a similar thing that's happening with Purdy. Obviously, Purdy did not come in with the same type of energy as a LeBron James. But I think when people come in there and they're saying, this guy's amazing, he's going to be amazing, he's going to be the next Patrick Mahomes, or he's going to be able to dethrone Patrick Mahomes, yada, 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 people are like, whoa, let's settle down here. Let's relax. And then because of that, both sides are just getting more and more charged. They're feeding off each other, and it just kind of erupts. So I'm curious to see how they break this down right now. Because Purdy matches Montana, first QB in 39 years to sweep every playoff team in the conference.
Drew's still
So
saying
now quickly, a quick preamble here, because I don't want anybody to get this twisted around, okay? We are not comparing Brock to Joe Montana, okay?
No, that's
Everybody is.
No,
I mean, really though.
not.
So many people are.
Most notably
people
you,
that
Brew.
know.
But
I have not
Brew,
done
you gave
it.
us a Joe Montana history lesson and yelled at us about his Notre Dame career.
See,
last
now
week.
there's
It
even
was
fight
true,
about,
though.
are
No,
they?
but
I
we're
dropped
not comparing.
facts.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead.
But Purdy's the first quarterback in almost 40 years to beat every playoff NFC team, either during the actual playoffs or during the regular season. Also, by the way, he joins this list of luminaries who have brought their teams back from the brink, including, it's kind of a double whammy for the show, Chiefs Joe Montana, Stafford, Brady, and of course,
That's ever?
yes.
Yeah.
Down 7.
Multiple
Right.
comeback
Joins
wins,
the
not
great
just one.
Stan Humphries on the
But
list.
that's the one guy you pick out there. Look, everybody else.
Great
And
quarterback.
Chiefs
Well,
Joe Montana,
Stafford's
I watched
good.
Chiefs Joe Montana was fine. He was fine.
He was
still
pretty
Joe
good.
Montana.
He was pretty good. Right. He was still Joe Montana.
We're not comparing
That's fine.
Purdy to Joe
Go
Montana.
ahead.
Don't think. Why are you acting like
Go ahead.
Just
Go
because
to-
he's on the graphic with Tom Brady and Joe Montana.
What's the question?
Is Purdy getting enough credit for this run?
It depends on who you ask.
I asked you.
In this chair,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
In that chair, no. By the MVP voters, the writers, yes. He's going to be at the award ceremony, right? From his teammates, his coaches, the 49er greats. You want to know who's comparing him to Joe Montana? The guy who may know him as better than anybody as a quarterback, Jerry Rice. All right, he's comparing him. So I think he is. It just depends. And there are a lot of people like Nick that aren't giving him his full due. And what I say is, what else does he have to do? Again, yeah, if he goes out there and beats the Chiefs, great. But if he doesn't, is that going to be a slight on Brock
What
Purdy?
is his
So that's what I want to, and I'm going to let this clip run more because I want to see this more back and forth. But that I just wanted to pause that real fast because that's the thing. If the Chiefs beat the 49ers, because right now my channel has had a lot of back and forth between the 49ers and the Chiefs, and they both think that I hate them both, which is just absurd because I don't. And so I've been getting hate from both the 49ers fans and the Chiefs fans, and it's been fun, let me tell you. But that's the thing. You're going to have the Chiefs. If they beat the 49ers, then a lot of fans are going to say, see, told you Brock Purdy was nothing. And then if they beat the 49ers beat the Chiefs, they're going to say, see, I told you, you doubted, Brock Purdy and the 49ers all this time. And that's not the way how I view the world. I don't view these things black or white. I think Brock Purdy can play a really great game and still lose against the Chiefs and still say that Brock Purdy's great. Or I think that Brock Purdy can play a really bad game or just not a good game at all, right? And Christian McCaffrey rushes for 300 yards, obviously making something up here, rushes for 300 yards and all of this, and the 49ers end up winning, and that has nothing to do with Brock Purdy, right? And to me, that's why football is the ultimate team sport in that regard. And the best way I can illustrate this is the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017, and Carson Wentz didn't play in the playoffs of the Super Bowl because he got injured, but Carson Wentz was absolutely so important to the Eagles winning the Super Bowl that year because he played like an MVP the whole season, should have won the MVP, but since he got injured, they didn't give it to him, but definitely I think should have, or at the very least, it's very much well seen that he would have if he continued to be able to play. But without that, the Eagles wouldn't have had home field advantage, the first round bye, and all of that. Without Carson Wentz playing that season, then the Eagles wouldn't have won the Super Bowl in the first place. So a lot of people, casuals, they see Carson Wentz had nothing to do with that Super Bowl. He didn't even play in it. And it's like, that's nonsense. And again, we see this in real time when we watch football. Someone rips off, an 80-yard play and they take it to the 1-yard line and then they hand it off to someone completely different and that person gets the touchdown, So that is how football and sports work. And so this whole credit divvying becomes more difficult in football, which honestly I find really fun. That's actually what I like a big part about football is because it's so much more interesting to analyze and break down because of this reason, right? It's like when someone like a Brock Purdy has a good game, but not an amazing elite game, and they win, and then McCaffrey has a big game, and you're just like, well, who deserves more credit for this? Or so-and-so did throw an interception, but then he threw one of the most amazing passes you've ever seen on fourth down. Does that balance it out? He was also the reason why they were down, but then he was the reason why they came back. Which is it? So it just, to me, it becomes very interesting to kind of dissect that. I think for whatever reason, when talking about really both Brock Purdy and Patrick Mahomes, and actually really just both these teams, the 49ers and the Chiefs, we lose sight of that. And I don't know why. I honestly don't.
Full due, because I don't know if you're giving it to him.
I think I'm giving this fool. He's a very good quarterback.
Okay,
that's what he is. And I think, and here's a comparison you can put on my doorstep.
Okay.
Not Joe Montana, Drew Brees. I think this guy can be Drew, and I know what Drew Brees is.
Good.
This guy can be like a Drew Brees. Good. Now, will he be a Hall of Famer? We'll see. But he can be like a Drew Brees. The size is similar. Purdy's actually a little taller than Brees, an inch taller.
More athletic.
Neither one, maybe a little more athletic. Neither one had the strongest arm. Great accuracy, great timing. Leads his guys. That's part of why they can get. I think he can be Drew Brees.
Okay,
that's part of why they get their yards after catch.
But still one of the
great quarterbacks. Joe Montana's better than Drew Brees.
Yes, but one of the 15 greatest quarterbacks of all time.
I'm saying, hold on. No, look, don't. I'm not gonna let you pin me down on anything.
Wait.
If Zion Williamson comes into the league and we say he reminds me of Charles Barkley, am I saying he's gonna be as good as Barkley? No, I'm saying that's who he plays like. No. When I look at Brock Purdy, I see a guy like Drew Brees, and Drew Brees grew into being elite,
and I'm not.
And I think Brock Purdy can grow into being elite.
So, and I'm not. I promise.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's a top 15 quarterback ever.
No. But if someone says Zion Williamson's ceiling is Charles Barkley. What they are saying is he could be one of the 25 greatest players ever.
I'm not saying that's
his ceiling is Drew Brees?
No, I'm not saying that's his ceiling. I'm saying he reminds me of Drew Brees.
So he's like a poor
And I
man's
think he
Drew
could
Brees.
grow. No, I think he could grow into being a Drew Brees.
Okay, well, I think
And
if
I'm
you
not saying he's
grow
gonna
into
be a
being
top
Drew
15
Brees,
quarterback.
then you are going to
I
be
mean,
Hall
look,
of
do
Famer.
what you want with
No,
it. But he can, I mean, seriously,
They're
I'm
getting
comparing
lost
him to
now
Drew
in the
Brees.
semantics.
Okay.
All right, great.
If you want to put him in the Hall of Fame right now, go ahead.
But when we
I'm
say,
not doing
hey,
it.
is he like Drew Brees? You say, no, I'm not saying that. That's
No,
why we
I'm
get a little
saying
twisted.
when you look, when we compare guys,
Yeah.
when we rip guys coming into this draft, you're saying
This is the one thing that I think is a little unfair with this show. And you see this with people who are smart and just well-spoken. Nick Wright is, for the most part, obviously pretty smart. Just in general, whether you agree with his points or not, he's just a smart, like, well-spoken person, and he understands how to navigate arguments, which doesn't necessarily mean that you're more correct or not. Just because you can argue your position better doesn't mean that you're actually more correct. And Chris Broussard isn't as sharp in that regard. I love Brew a lot, but the way he can piece together arguments and stuff like that, he is not as well spoken, and so you can kind of debate and beat him in debates even if he's right, because that's just how Brew is, either naturally or also the fact that he's just older, and so he's just not as cognitively as quick and sharp. But she's actually even admitted himself, that's his own words, not mine. And Nick is definitely sharp in that regard. And I've seen this in other debates and conversations outside of sports with that regard. And so I think that's the problem that I almost feel bad, because they use that against Broussard. They back him into this corner, and he's just not the best at really trying to explain the exact point of what he's trying to make, or they hold certain words that he says and they hold his feet to the fire, and they're like, well, you saying this, and like, they know what he's trying to say. He's saying Brock Purdy is not Drew Brees right now. He reminds him of Drew Brees, and one day he could maybe be as good as Drew Brees, but he's not saying that's what's going to happen, and he's not saying that that's his ceiling either. He's just saying, listen, this is in the realm of possibility. This is just kind of what we're talking about here. Okay, now I'll go off on that. But they want to, like, hold his feet to the fire, and then he kind of starts to backtrack, and then he gets his own, gets kind of lost in his own thoughts and stuff like that. And that's where, I think they, and sometimes Wilds tries to, he'll both help the situation, or he just makes jokes and, just tries to make it funny. But this is something that I definitely noticed the more closely I watch this show. And it's what makes Nick dangerous, because he can even be dead wrong, but he's very good at arguing his points, which is an art in itself. It really, really is.
Caleb Williams is Mahomes 2.2.
Yeah.
So can he be the GOAT?
What? Yes.
Really?
Yeah,
He can
that's
be
his
better than
ceiling.
Mahomes.
That's his ceiling.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah,
Stop it. That's no way. He
What do you
is
mean?
not going to be as good as Patrick Mahomes.
No, I don't think he will either.
But you just compared him.
No,
You just said he could.
Yes, that would be his ceiling. But we don't have to talk about Caleb
ain't
Williams
got
here.
no
I don't
Mahomes
listen.
ceiling.
I don't. Okay, so
I'm just saying, I don't like you. When I compare him to Drew Brees, now you saying I'm saying he's going to be a top 15 quarterback ever.
No, Wild.
That's what you just said.
Yeah, you did say that.
No. Yeah,
That's what I'm saying.
No,
You did.
wait.
But do you think it'd be insulting to Brock Purdy if you said he's like Kirk Cousins because he's much better? He's more like Drew Brees and Joe Montana?
He's proved. What has been Cousins' problem? As great as he is in the regular season,
Can't come up in the big moments.
Yeah.
Purdy's 4-0 when he finishes.
So he's better
the
than
playoff
Kirk
game.
Cousins.
I'm just saying he has shown poise and moxie.
I'm not. Okay. So
That Cousins
I'm not.
has.
Listen, I'm not trying to pin you down on anything.
You clearly are.
You brought up Drew Brees.
I mean, I'm smooth.
Yes,
Yeah,
you're right. Because here's the thing.
Didn't matter
America,
that
all
mess.
right, may I go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because Brew is trying, in my humble opinion, to have it both ways.
No.
What? Brew.
I'm supposed to say he's
No,
Drew
no,
Brees
no,
now? He's going to be
no,
a top 15
Brew,
quarterback?
you're the one
If
who-
I don't say that, I hate him?
Brew, you're the one who brought up Drew Brees.
Yeah,
Nobody
I think
brought
that's
it up.
fair.
I was talking about Joe
That's
Montana.
fair.
Brew,
Yeah, you
hold
brought
on.
up Joe Montana.
You are trying to have it both
No,
ways.
I don't want
All right,
it
Can
both
I
ways.
please?
I
Can I
like
please
Brock
go?
Purdy.
Can I please?
I'm
Just
on
be
the
the Drew
record.
Brees graphic.
Can I please go?
Go.
Because Brew wants to be on the record that he's the Brock Purdy guy, while
He is.
somewhere in his brain, some would call it the devil on his shoulder. I would call it the angel on his shoulder saying, don't do it, man.
Yeah.
Guys got pumpkin potential. Don't do it. So I don't want all of a sudden what happened to me, if I'm Brew, with Jimmy Garoppolo to happen again.
No,
I don't want it to be hung around my neck.
Jimmy G is nothing like Brock
I'm
Purdy.
just right, but I guess my point is the Jimmy G you talk about now is nothing like the Jimmy G we
All
used to
I
argue
did
about.
was say graphic.
So, okay, yeah. And so,
That's a fact.
So here is my hot take. I don't think it's possible for him to get more credit than he's currently getting. I think that currently he gets more credit than Christian McCaffrey. I think he is talked about by his teammates more than they talk about themselves or Christian McCaffrey. He is invited to the most prestigious award ceremony the NFL has. It's only 5 invitees for that
Christian
award.
McCaffrey.
With McCaffrey,
Right,
who's a running back, so that's a lot of love.
Christian McCaffrey is also the best in the world at his position. Yeah. I think we all agree on that.
Right now, this year he was.
Yeah, sir. This year, no doubt. And even Brock's most ardent supporters don't want to actually have to rank him. They don't want to actually have to project it. They just want to say, here's what he could be maybe one day, but I'm not saying I think he will be. So I will put on the black hat and once again be very clear on what I think he is. I think Brock Purdy is an above replacement level NFL starter. I think if you lined up all 32 starting quarterbacks and said, we're not telling you what team they're going to play for, he would go somewhere from 14th to 18th in that draft of quarterbacks.
I wish we had a list of all the quarterbacks right now, because I know we'll leave some quarterbacks off. This is an interesting take. I agree with Nick in the first part when he said he doesn't think that Brock Purdy can get any more credit because he's thinking he's already getting all of the credit based off of, and again, I'm basing this now off of the comments and the viewers of this channel more than anything, but also the conversations that are being had publicly and stuff like that. Brock Purdy is getting a tremendous amount of credit. People are talking way more about Brock Purdy than Debo, McCaffrey, Shanahan, any of that. Like, all of the talk of the town is Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy, as well as all of the comments on YouTube of everyone saying Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy. No one's telling me, man, Christian McCaffrey, you see that game? It's all Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy, Brock Purdy. And if Brock Purdy makes some mistakes, they say no. And in fact, when I was saying, I was saying to someone in the comments that Brock Purdy didn't have a great start to the game, and they just immediately shot back, well, the whole team wasn't playing good. And it's like, okay, again, it's like you can't even admit that Brock Purdy didn't have a good first half, So in that regard, I agree with what Nick Wright is saying. Now, in terms of putting him who you want as a quarterback, that's the interesting question, because Brock Purdy, at least over the last few playoffs, I agree. He has showed me more that Brock Purdy is such a tricky quarterback to evaluate because he is somewhat inconsistent. Like he has some really awesome highs and has done some amazing things that you're just like, wow, I'm genuinely really impressed with. But then he's also had moments where you're like, that's not great. And again, he plays with an amazing elite team. Most quarterbacks need a great team to do anything special, okay? Outside of maybe like a few quarterbacks in the history of the NFL don't need this amazing, great, good to great to elite roster. Now, again, I stand by that if Brock Purdy was playing with the Buffalo Bills and also with those offensive coordinators and stuff, Brock Purdy would not have led his team to the Super Bowl. Or if he was playing with the Panthers, or if he was playing with it doesn't even matter. Just name other random teams. The Jacksonville Jaguars, the Denver Broncos. But I also say the same thing about Patrick Mahomes. I say that Patrick Mahomes, if he's drafted by the Carolina Panthers, he is not going on 3 Super Bowls, to win his 3rd Super Bowl. It's just not happening. And his playoff record is not what it is. It's just not. I do not believe that for one bit. Obviously, these other players matter. Obviously, these other coaches like Andy Reid really, really matter. So Brock is, Shanahan is absolutely maximizing Brock Purdy, not only from a coaching perspective, but then also with the players around him. And so if that's his max, and granted he's still learning and growing, so we don't really know what his max is, but the reality is that when your team is that good, that amazing, and your coach is that good and that amazing, then your level of play needs to truly be that good, that amazing. And the problem with evaluating is that Purdy is so young. He's brand new to the NFL, essentially, right? This is his first full, complete season. And it's just like the problem is that his team and his coach are already 5-6 years, into their careers and into their true primes now of their careers. And Purdy is not that yet. And so that's where that kind of disconnect kind of happens. So when Purdy kind of doesn't have an amazing game or does bad, we're like, well, he's just young. And then if he does play really well, you're just like, well, the team around him is really good. So of course he's going to play good. So it's just an unevenness. I mean, think about it. Where if you're playing pickup basketball or football or something, you're the little brother and you're playing with a bunch of the older kids and you're on this team and you could be really, really good. You could be a great player. And you know what? One day you could be better than all of those other kids on the playground, but you're just younger and smaller than them. So when you win and do good, you're like, well, yeah, you're playing with the older kids. Of course they're going to elevate you. It doesn't mean that you're not good. It doesn't mean, and also when you make mistakes and mess up, it's also because you're young. And so it's like, of course, you're just not as big and strong as fast as these other guys. And so I think that comparison works well with the situation that Brock Purdy is in. Not so much physically because they're all pretty much at their physical prime for the most part at this point, or they're leaving their physical prime, if anything. But in terms of their mental prime and their deep understanding of the game and stuff like that, Tom Brady was talking about that, it took him like 15 years or whatever to finally truly understand the game and finally now reach the point where the defense can't show him anything that he hasn't seen before. But he didn't feel that way in the first 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of his career, and that's Tom Brady. So of course Brock Purdy is going to continue to learn and grow, and that's kind of this whole thing. So I think Brock Purdy is getting enough credit, but I think the question marks around Purdy are understandable. I mean, they just are. And we have those question marks about pretty much every single quarterback except Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is really the only quarterback we have right now in the NFL that people don't really question or second guess in that regard. But every other quarterback they do, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, any of these quarterbacks. So that's the thing. And so now Brock Purdy has shined really high in moments, and he's also had some not so high moments. And even Patrick Mahomes has had not so high moments. Patrick Mahomes won a Super Bowl and did not play particularly well, throwing multiple interceptions. Really kind of played terrible in the game against the Cincinnati Bengals, and really changed the way that he plays. And it's benefited him, and it's benefited the Chiefs, as the last clip actually on First Things First, as I just did the video where they kind of discussed that. And so I think that's kind of also what's kind of going on with Brock Purdy. And to say that you have a question mark surrounding Brock Purdy, I think is okay, and I think it's healthy, and it doesn't mean that you're a hater or that means that you think he's going to be terrible or this or that. But even in the games that he's won or played well, they weren't complete games. In terms of recently in the playoffs specifically, right? The Packers game and the game against the Lions, they were not complete games start to finish where he played great. Both games he really had some really not great throws, interceptions, or plays that could have led to interceptions in both games, really. And then he had moments within those games that really showed poise and maturity and really big highs, and that you're just really like, see? And I think that's the push and pull conversation of like, oh my God, one minute he does something great, the next minute he does something that's not so great, which is not unlike what you see with backup quarterbacks or just above backup quarterbacks, which is kind of what Nick is trying to say. And the thing is that when you see some of his great moments, theoretically, you've seen other quarterbacks do just as great things, if not greater, like a Josh Allen, like a Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, of course, and stuff like that. So what makes someone like a Patrick Mahomes so elite and so great is the consistency, is minimizing the lows, maximizing the highs, and elevating that baseline, so it's not so much more lower with that regard. It's more just like this. rather than, like this. And that's kind of where Purdy is in his play within the last couple games. And at this point, I don't really care about the regular season. I'm just really focused on when the games matter most, right? Because again, I don't really care what he does in week 3 against, whoever. It just doesn't matter to me right now. So I think it's really interesting. I'm really curious to see how he plays in the Super Bowl. And going into the Super Bowl, I think right now my tentative prediction. Well, I'll save that for another time. But to me, Brock Purdy is still the question mark going into the Super Bowl. And again, that's not to say that he won't play great or that he can't play great. It's just that I don't know how he's going to play, because in both the previous games he's played, he started off not so great. And I don't know if you'll be able to get away with that against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. I don't believe you will be able to do that against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. So if Brock Purdy plays well start to finish, to me that really kind of changes everything. But we will find out soon enough. But what do you all think? Do you think Brock Purdy is getting enough credit? Do you think Brock Purdy is getting too much credit? Would love to hear your thoughts on this one. Please let me know in the comments below. Please don't forget to subscribe. As I said, we are building an amazing community, and I would absolutely love to have you part of it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really helps with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.